The first thing the crown prince did after ascending the throne was to execute my entire family. I cried until my tears ran dry, shouting my grievances at the execution ground. This is what you owe the peony. My Sioux family had been loyal for generations, yet we died because of a maid who climbed into the royal bed. Only my archenemy held my head and vomited a mouthful of blood. That day, he pointed his sword at the imperial city, like a vengeful ghost demanding a life. Then he took poison and ended his own life. When I opened my eyes again, I had returned to the day I was betrothed to the crown prince. The peony still climbed onto his bed as usual. This time, I threw myself directly into the arms of my archenemy, the Regent. Come, let's go watch a good show. Hello, everyone. Welcome to my channel. Subscribe us to read wonderful stories every day. Now the story begins. On the day the Sioux family was executed to the last member, it even snowed in the June sky. My father, who had been loyal to the royal family for half his life, was beheaded with a single stroke of the blade. Then came my mother, my elder brother, my younger sister. When it was my turn, Pei Jing personally took up the blade. His eyes filled with hatred. I screamed at him, "Why is that? I simply can't figure it out. After we got married, if not exactly a model couple, we at least treated each other with respect, all along. Our Sioux family has dedicated the entire clan's efforts to help him ascend to the imperial throne, yet he repaid kindness with enmity, accusing us of treason and demanding the execution of over 300 members of the entire clan." My heart ached so much I could hardly breathe, my hands rattling loudly in the wooden kang. Why on earth? Pei Jing. Pei Jing's eyes were bloodshot, like a devil crawling out from the underworld. I have never wronged him. So where does this overwhelming hatred of his come from? This is all what you owe, peony. He glared at me with gritted teeth, as if he wanted to devour me alive. It took me a long while to remember who Peony was. I struggled to speak, testing the waters. Was it Xiaoyao, your maid from back then? You don't deserve to mention her name. He suddenly erupted, his hand trembling as he gripped the knife. It really was her. No wonder he had planted the entire courtyard with peonies, by the bridge. The red peonies bloom year after year, but for whom do they open? It turns out the flowers weren't blooming for me. 6 years have passed, and I was such a fool, kept completely in the dark. It turns out he was in love with that chambermaid who climbed into his bed. My heart was filled with sorrow, and I let out a light, bitter laugh. He was blaming me, blaming the Sioux family, for Xiaoyao's death. Seeing that I was laughing instead of grieving, Pei Jing's eyes widened with fury. In the blink of an eye, his blade fell, and blood splattered 3 feet high. My eyes widened, death refusing to close them. Perhaps heaven took pity, for when I opened my eyes again, I had returned to the day of my engagement to the crown prince. The hall before me was adorned with lanterns and decorations, filled with guests. Fortunately, my engagement with Pei Jing hasn't been finalized yet. There's still time to change things. What does it matter if the Sioux family holds the position of prime minister? The eldest Miss Sioux isn't favored by the crown prince, a female relative sneered, covering her mouth with a handkerchief as she chuckled. On such an important day, we don't even see His Highness the Crown Prince making an appearance. Indeed, she hasn't even entered the household yet and is already disliked. Truly, she tried to steal a chicken only to end up losing the rice. Who told her to aim so high? They spoke sarcastically without regard for anyone around, probably intentionally for me to hear. Baozhu was about to step forward to argue, but I stopped her. Pei Jing couldn't possibly show up now. He should be drinking and chatting with Xiaoyao at this moment. In my previous life, he was nowhere to be found, and I searched everywhere for him, only to discover that he had been drugged with an aphrodisiac by Peony in the guest room. If I hadn't arrived in time, I would have witnessed a live intimate scene. Don't worry, miss. His Highness must have been held up by something. If he didn't truly care for you, why would he have agreed to marry you as the crown princess? Hearing Baozhu say this, I couldn't help but scoff. Silly girl. Besides genuine affection, there's also the power and status of my Sioux family. Baozhu, I'm fine. Don't bother with the gossip from those chatterboxes. Our Sioux family is like a big tree that catches the wind. Everyone wants to take a swing at us. Baozhu still wanted to say something, but I shook my head and pulled her, turning to leave. As I turned, My eyes met Pei Nangui's. Greetings, Ninth Imperial Uncle. I curtsied in salute. In my previous life, I never realized that beneath his confrontational gaze, there was also a hint of concern. I always thought Pei Nangui disliked me, always wearing a cold and stern expression whenever he spoke to me. It was either to mock or to ridicule, but who would have known that after I died wrongfully accused, only he, my archenemy, collected the corpses of my entire clan. Holding my head, he wept uncontrollably, his trembling hands closing my eyes, even vomiting a mouthful of blood. I abandoned my usual cold and hostile demeanor, grinning cheekily as I approached him. What a coincidence, running into you here, Ninth Imperial Uncle. Enemies cross paths. He let out a light snort from his nose. As sarcastic as ever, yet, for some reason, his voice was deep and mellow today, with not a trace of sharpness or bitterness. Moreover, with his dashing eyebrows and starry eyes, his appearance was even more handsome than Pei Jing's by 3 parts. He was also the illustrious Prince Regent, possessing power, influence, and wealth, not to mention holding military authority in his hands. If it weren't for Pei Jing, he would truly be the best choice. By the time the 2 people engaging in the affair in the guest room must have already taken off their clothes, a plan formed in my mind. Ninth Imperial Uncle, since you have graciously lowered yourself to visit my humble residence today, I must insist on treating you to a play. Before Pei Nangui could hesitate, I took his hand and strode purposefully toward the guest room. As soon as he approached, he heard the soft, ambiguous voice of a woman inside. Who's in there, in broad daylight? Have you no shame? Baozhu blushed with embarrassment and mustered the courage to scold. Before the commotion in the room could cease, Pei Nangui kicked the door open. I was about to enter when Pei Nangui, who had just turned to leave, stopped me. He looked at me with a worried expression, hesitating to speak. But when the 2 inside hurried out with their clothes in disarray, I was stunned. Your Highness the Crown Prince. Tears welled up in my eyes, and I murmured in disbelief, unsure of what to say. It was Peony who, with a face full of fear and dread, knelt weakly on the ground like a willow swaying in the wind. Miss Sue, it is all this servant's fault. Please, do not blame His Highness the Crown Prince. I took 2 steps back, looking at her in confusion and helplessness, but did not ask her to rise. Her head kept knocking, my tears kept falling. That's right, I was faking it. Anyway, she cries and I cry, so let's just keep at it. In my past life, I arrived early, before these 2 had even hooked up. I promptly helped her up and, suppressing my own grievances, escorted her to the side courtyard. The Crown Prince is the heir apparent. It's only natural for him to have multiple consorts. But to humiliate me on the day of our engagement, what respectable young lady wouldn't feel bitter and disappointed? Yet, as a daughter of a noble family, I was taught from childhood to know my place and act with propriety. I had to quietly settle the matter, with none of the guests outside being any the wiser. But in the end, it was impossible to keep this from the Empress in the palace. The people she sent discovered that Peony had drugged and climbed into the bed. To quell her anger and also to appease the Su family, that very day, Peony was beaten to death. The Empress said this was an explanation for my Su family, yet it was this very explanation that doomed our entire family of over 100 people. Hearing the commotion, people began to gather one after another. Baozhu tugged at my sleeve. If we delay any longer, both the Eastern Palace and the Su family will lose all face. But I still stood there in a daze. Enough. Pei Jing, seeing that I remained unmoved, frowned and looked at me. Peony is my personal maid. She should naturally be taken into the household. With that, he personally helped the person up. Liu Yun, what happened at the engagement banquet was my fault. But you must understand, I am the Crown Prince, and you are the future Crown Princess. It is only natural to bring new people into the household. I lowered my head, hesitating and silent. Peony threw herself at my feet, as if she had been wronged. Miss Sue, it's all Peony's fault. Please don't blame His Highness the Crown Prince anymore. It's just that today, emotions were hard to control. Peony, get up, don't cry anymore. Seeing the beauty's pitiable state, Pei Jing, with a cold expression, pulled her into his embrace. The guests pointed and whispered, their murmurs filling the air. and my face flushed crimson with shame and anger. In my past life, I never caught him in the act, nor did Pei Jing ever voice such words. I foolishly believed he was utterly innocent. But I should have been more attentive if it weren't mutual affection. Why wouldn't he have been angry? Now he is determined to put me on the hot seat. Indeed, if it were the old me, out of consideration for face, I would have immediately smoothed things over and downplayed the matter. But Pei Jing, how could I let you have your way? Let me see, once the waters are muddied, whether your good reputation will still remain. If it weren't for the full support of our Su family, would your position as Crown Prince still be secure, Your Highness? Today is your engagement banquet with Liu Yun. I dare not ask for your excessive favor, but how can you make me lose face like this today? I covered my face with a handkerchief, at a loss amidst the crowd's mockery. Seeing that I was being uncooperative, Pei Jing also grew angry. Liu Yun, Xiaoyao has been with me since childhood and should have entered the household before you. If it weren't for your Su family using your influence to pressure me, she would have been my crown princess. Your Highness, how could you humiliate my lady like this, seeing him trample my dignity underfoot? Baozhu couldn't hold back and stepped forward to argue. A mere maid, how dare you speak? How insolent! Guards, seize her and give her a beating. Seeing Pei Jing about to harm Baozhu, I shielded her behind me. Your Highness, Baozhu is a maid, but isn't Xiaoyao one as well? Here in my Su residence, equating a maid with your subject's daughter, what is your intention? Pei Jing truly loved Xiaoyao to the point of madness. In my past life, for her sake, my entire Su family was wiped out. And Baozhu remained loyal to the end, protecting her master until death. In this second life, I will never let them be harmed again. Liu Yun, both you and Xiaoyao are my women, how can they not be compared? Pei Jing raised his chin. Moreover, both favor and punishment are blessings from heaven. I never expected you to be so jealous. Pei Jing, how dare you, while the emperor is still in his prime, you dare call yourself heaven? Pei Nangui's angry shout echoed through the courtyard. And everyone fell silent. Pei Jing knew he was in the wrong, his face changing colors repeatedly. Imperial uncle, this is my family affair, just women's petty jealousies. How could you make such a big deal out of it? Pei Nangui fixed his hawk-like eyes on Pei Jing. Family matters, as far as I know. Your engagement to the young lady of the Su family has not yet been finalized. Imperial uncle, today is the engagement banquet. This matter is already set in stone. Liu Yun is being unreasonable and has caused such embarrassment. I hope Imperial uncle will forgive her. With that, Pei Jing pulled me along to bow and apologized to Pei Nangui. I shook off his hand, wishing I could bite my lip until it bled. I struggled to suppress the hatred in my heart and knelt directly before Pei Nangui's black boots. Your Highness the Regent, I do not wish to marry the Crown Prince. The one I have always admired is you. Please, be kind to me. As soon as my words fell, the surroundings fell into a brief silence. Pei Nangui looked at me with a complex expression, his eyes dark and unreadable. I met his gaze with pleading eyes and repeated what I had just said. Please, Regent, be kind to me. Before Pei Nangui could speak, Pei Jing was already furious. You, Su Liu Yun, you fickle and promiscuous wretch, so shameless and immoral. Do you really think the 9th Imperial uncle would fancy you? Get up quickly. I'll consider your youth and inexperience and not hold it against you. You are still the Crown Princess. But today, Peony has done nothing wrong. Since things have come to this, I will make her my consort. I could hardly believe my ears. The man I loved with all my heart in my past life was actually like this. Pei Nangui's expression was indifferent, yet he kicked Pei Jing right in the chest. How dare you, in broad daylight, in front of everyone, you slander the virtue of a noble lady, engage in lewd acts with a maid, and still have the audacity to speak so arrogantly. It seems to me you've grown too comfortable with your easy life. You truly have no sense of propriety. Yes, truly no sense of propriety. No matter the reason, Pei Nangui was determined to protect my dignity today. My father is the current Prime Minister. How many brilliant strategies has he contributed to the court? My brother has just returned triumphantly from battle, having defended the northern frontier for the court. Our Su family has been loyal and virtuous for generations, with talents emerging one after another in our clan. Today, The Crown Prince came to my Su residence and, in front of all the civil and military officials, deliberately embarrassed and insulted me. Even if it was to appease the hearts of the veteran ministers, the Crown Prince had to take this kick today. Amid the commotion, my father and mother had already rushed over upon hearing the news. Seeing me kneeling, my mother quickly pulled me up and shielded me in her arms. This old minister pays his respects to His Highness the Regent and His Highness the Crown Prince. Father bowed respectfully, gritted his teeth, and continued, "My daughter is untalented and unworthy of such a position. In my humble opinion, the marriage should be called off." Seeing this, the servants in the mansion also smiled apologetically and dispersed the guests. Pei Jing's face turned pale then red, but he dared not speak recklessly again. He left in a huff, taking the peony with him. Seeing that the matter was settled, Pei Nangui was about to bid farewell to his father and leave. "Your Highness the Regent." Every word Liu Yun said came from the heart. I called out to him softly, and his back stiffened slightly. Father covered my mouth and dragged me away. "There's no chance for us. Give up on this idea. If you do not wish to marry the Crown Prince, that is also fine. I will find a way to appeal to the Emperor on your behalf. When the time comes, His Majesty will surely arrange a good marriage for you." I strained my neck, following Pei Nangui's receding figure until it disappeared from sight. As soon as this happened, I became the laughingstock of the entire capital. The eldest daughter of the Su family was cast aside by the one from the Eastern Palace. Once again, shamelessly trying to climb up to the Regent, Baozhu was anxiously pacing around the courtyard, while I leisurely brewed tea with mountain spring water, quietly savoring the aroma. "Miss, you are not yet married. Your reputation must not be ruined." Seeing that I remained unmoved, Baozhu stamped her foot in frustration. I shook my head with a light laugh. "What's there to fear? Just wait and see. The road ahead is still long." This isn't a forced smile, it's just that Pei Jing's actions are genuinely amusing. Indeed, in my past life, I always defended him, and I never realized he was such a foolish person. Born with a silver spoon in his mouth, he probably still can't figure it out. A crown prince who loses his crown princess may not hold his ground firmly. Just as I was lost in thought, hurried footsteps sounded from behind me. "You wretched creature." Father's mustache trembled with anger, and he pointed at me, gasping for breath. "Who allowed you to act in such a self-disrespectful manner in public? Our Su family is not like ordinary families. Marriage is not something you can decide for yourself. Do you know that the Regent King?" Father sighed deeply and sat down on the chair. "Enough, in the end. It is I who have failed you. But this matter concerns the lives of our entire Su clan. You must not get involved with the Regent King." My father's figure was already slightly stooped, and in that moment of sighing, he seemed to have aged even more. Mother rushed into the courtyard, her eyes red as she pounded on father's chest. "If it weren't for you, how could my Liu Yun have been dragged into the royal strife? The Crown Prince wronged her, and you wronged her too. Both father and mother have always cherished me, so it was in my past life, and so it is in this one, in a centuries-old family like ours. Which young lady could ever escape such a fate? In my past life, I was too submissive to fate. From a young age, I knew I was destined to become the Crown Princess, and then the Empress. No matter who the Crown Prince was, perhaps I would have loved him. But that's not how it is. When water reaches a dead end, it becomes a waterfall. When a person reaches a dead end, they are reborn. I have already died once. Why would I care about fate, or compromise with fate, even if not for myself? The hundreds of people in the Su family are worth fighting for. Liu Yun, that regent, holds immense power and harbors wicked ambitions. His Majesty is deeply wary of him. You must not. Father picked up the teacup and took a big gulp, earnestly advising me. "But father, it's true that His Majesty is wary, and it's also true that Pei Nangui holds immense power, but the one with the wolfish ambition was never him. In the past life, on the path to supporting Pei Jing, only Pei Nangui remained loyal and never wavered. When my Su family was executed to the last member, it was Pei Nangui who, with deep loyalty and righteousness, buried the wronged and loyal souls. Who would have thought that his path to regicide was not for power or profit, but for me? Father, I cannot betray him." Pei Jing broke faith first. So why should our Su family cling to this crooked tree? The crown prince is not as capable as the regent, since the virtuous should rule. What is wrong with that? As soon as I finished speaking, my father's slap landed squarely on my face. Nonsense. I stiffened my neck and met his gaze. He remained silent for a long moment before finally letting out a deep sigh, turned his back, and walked away. The news of the emperor and empress summoning me to the palace arrived soon after. I was not the least bit surprised. I dressed in my finest attire to enter the palace for the audience, conducting myself with grace and propriety. Liu Yun. My dear, oh my, you are so full of life. This little face of yours has truly captured my heart. The empress warmly took my hand and slipped a flawless, vibrant green jade bracelet onto my wrist. She is Pei Jing's biological mother, and I understand what she means, seeing that I remained unmoved. Her nanny soon presented treasures that flowed like water before me. The most astonishing was a perfectly round and plump Eastern pearl. Liu Yun, after all, you are to become my daughter-in-law. This pearl will eventually be worn on your head sooner or later. She solemnly placed the pearl into my hand. I knew it was a promise made to our Su family. The Eastern pearl, which only the empress was permitted to wear, was the bargaining chip she offered in exchange. I waved my hands in panic and feigned ignorance of its deeper meaning. Your Majesty, I dare not overstep my bounds. The empress's benevolent smile remained unchanged as she simply urged me to rise and partake of tea and pastries. Yet, those who emerge victorious from the depths of the palace are never truly kind-hearted. Just as I was at a loss for how to respond, Pei Jing rushed in anxiously. Su Liuyun, you've come after all. His eyes were filled with disdain, as if he had anticipated it. I advise you to know your limits. As long as you treat Xiaoyaro well, the position of crown princess will still be yours. Seeing the situation turning sour, the empress had no choice but to scold him. Jinger, has that seductress cast a spell on you? How could you speak to Liuyun like this? But it was like playing the lute to a cow. Her words fell on deaf ears and only made things worse. Pei Jingding couldn't stand to see his darling looked down upon. Not daring to speak disrespectfully to the empress, he turned his spearhead toward me. Su Liuyun, don't think that just because you're the legitimate daughter of the Su family, you can be jealous and domineering. Did you speak ill of Xiaoyaro in front of my mother again? Just like in the previous life, this coward, he couldn't do anything to the empress, so he indiscriminately blamed all the mistakes on me, and that old fox of an empress has always been evasive about such matters. She wouldn't stand up to speak for me, and was only too happy to use me as her shield. With tears welling in my eyes, I knelt on the ground. Your Majesty, His Highness truly has no interest in your humble subject, and besides, he and Lady Xiaoyaro are deeply in love. I both envy them and cannot bear to take away someone else's beloved. The Empress spoke evasively, but I would no longer foolishly act as her pawn. In this lifetime, I look forward to the mother and son turning against each other. Hearing me say this, the Empress clenched the prayer beads in her hand in anger. What kind of mutual affection? How could a mere maid be worthy? Pei Jing was furious, but he dared not talk back to his mother, the Empress. He shot me a fierce glare before turning and leaving. After leaving the Empress's palace, I understood the situation even more clearly. If I were to marry Pei Jing in this life, the outcome would be no different. His venomous glare made me feel as if I had returned to the execution ground. I must hurry. The Empress will surely use every means to tie our Su family to the Crown Prince's chariot. If we delay any longer, I fear it will become difficult to handle. If we can't just sit and wait for death, then we must take the initiative. I bribed Pei Nangui's doorman and got his whereabouts. Qianli Lake is a good place. I took Baozhu for a leisurely boat ride on the lake, after circling around 49 times. My legs were numb, and I finally caught sight of Pei Nangui. I excitedly raised my arm to wave in greeting. Your Highness the Regent, what a coincidence. Before I could finish speaking, I heard a sudden splash. I lost my balance and fell into the water. According to Pei Nangui's consistent reputation, he would not save me, nor would he save any woman, but the image of him holding my lifeless body and weeping bitterly is still vivid in my mind. I know he will definitely save me. Amid the gasps of the crowd, he held my drenched body and swam to the shore. The sheer dress I had deliberately changed into clung tightly to my body. and I held on to him without letting go. His firm chest was pressed too close to mine, his rapidly beating heart thumping loudly. Ahum, I thank your highness for saving me. The two of us, drenched and embracing, were clearly seen by all the onlookers. After returning to the mansion, I fell seriously ill. The news spread like wildfire. Known to everyone, of course, I spent quite a bit of silver on this. Dragging my sick and weak body, I voluntarily knelt in the ancestral hall. Father, it is your daughter's unfilialness, but now he has ruined my purity. If I cannot marry him, I have no choice but to die. Father was so frightened that he waved his hands repeatedly. TSK, 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 your father won't send you to your death, even if it means resigning and returning to the countryside. I will risk my old face to make this marriage happen for you. Father, please do not blame your daughter. I did this only to secure a way out for the Su family. Even after you threatened to resign from your court position, the emperor still did not consent to this marriage. It's clear how much of this was due to caution. And how much was the empress's doing? I just didn't expect the empress would stoop so low as to have Pei Jing personally seek me out. Pei Jing met me reluctantly. Liu Yun. Now that you have lost your purity, you are no longer worthy of being my woman, but in consideration of the great achievements of your Su family, I will reluctantly take you as my Liangdi. Seeing that I remained silent, he sneered, you and the 9th imperial uncle are impossible. Either marry me, or take the 3 feet of white silk. Choose for yourself. I, Su Liuyun, have never been one to yield to threats. My expression instantly turned cold. Then, your highness, go before the emperor and request that he bestow the white silk. The Su family has been loyal for generations. Even a woman does not fear life or death. If the sovereign commands a subject to die, then die I shall. This version of me is too unfamiliar, unorthodox, sharp-tongued. Pei Jing pointed at me in disbelief, gnashing his teeth in anger. You, very well, you don't know what's good for you, then we'll just wait and see. I understood clearly that this fire wasn't burning fiercely enough yet. If I don't push him further, Pei Nangui will probably remain unmoved. Pei Jing, you better not disappoint me. You must make the emperor bestow upon me the 3-foot white silk, soon. Everyone in the capital knew that the emperor intended to bestow the white silk, sending me to my demise. I don't know how many people have laughed at me, and some soft-hearted ones have pitied me for being born noble yet destined for hardship. Father was so anxious he was pacing around, asking me over and over, did the crown prince say it himself? Absolutely true. I am the only daughter in the family, and my father once said I was his pearl. The crown prince's harsh words finally broke my father's heart. Meanwhile, the news also reached Pei Nangui's ears. Late at night, just as I had fallen asleep, I heard noises on the roof. In the darkness, a figure appeared in my chamber. It was me. It was Pei Nangui. Do you know what it means to marry me? His voice was cool yet pleasant, as smooth as the moonlight tonight. What exactly are you trying to achieve, going to such lengths? I rose and wrapped my arms around him from behind. Since I had already thrown shame to the wind, I might as well go all the way. I want to marry you. Pei Nangui, I want to be your princess consort. My hand brushed against his abdomen, and his body stiffened, his breath catching in his throat. I don't care what you're after, but once you enter my household, I suggest you behave yourself. His voice was a bit hoarse, and in the quiet, there was the sound of his Adam's apple moving up and down. I'm just into you as a person. I like you, Pei Nangui. I really do like you, arguing with you, throwing tantrums at you, deliberately being at odds with you. Which of these things could a noble prince or a highborn lady ever do? These marks are all signs of affection, all surging love. In our past life, we realized it too late. Pei Nangui, let's not miss it again in this life. Alright, I walked up to him, stood on tiptoe, and pressed my lips to his thin, lightly pursed ones, as if a faint candle had been lit. His breath turned rough. His large hand gripping me tightly, unable to restrain his passion, he responded to me domineeringly, invading me. Only when my lips had gone numb did he steady his breath and release me. Wait for me, I will marry you. I smiled knowingly, mission accomplished. Who knows what methods the all-powerful regent used, but he finally forced the emperor to grant us a marriage decree. Pei Jing was stripped of his position as crown prince due to his repeated improper words and actions. The ambitious empress must have thoroughly coached Pei Jing behind the scenes. This time, he actually had the audacity to pay another visit. Liu Yun, I can give you one last chance. If you refuse to be a consort, then so be it, you can be the crown princess. Be sensible and don't make a fuss. This time, it wasn't me who had to deal with it. Pei Nangui emerged from behind the screen with a dark expression. Pei Jing, you are utterly insolent. The emperor has bestowed this marriage. And Liu Yun is my princess consort. You ought to address her as princess consort and show her the respect due to an elder. Pei Jing's face turned ashen as he glared at me with resentment. I let out a light laugh. It's fine. How could an elder stoop to bickering with a junior? Pei Jing threw down a sentence. Don't you regret it? How could I possibly be the one to regret? An unfavored prince has no easy life. Pei Jing. Enjoy it slowly. Soon, I was married into the mansion with a grand, lavish dowry, brought in with great fanfare by Pei Nangui. On the night of the grand wedding, everything was finally settled. I could finally breathe a sigh of relief and take a good look at the person before me. He had been drinking, his face slightly flushed, with long, slender brows and eyes, his picturesque features now tinged with a bewitching charm. He looked different from the pale, gaunt man I remembered, the one who had taken poison for love, but I prefer him as he is now, in the prime of his life, full of vigor and spirit, a whole night of intimate passion. My body is marked everywhere by his exploration. As he whispered intimately in my ear, he told me, Liu Yun, I have loved you, for a very, very long time. I know it all. Unlike the joyous atmosphere in the prince's mansion, the situation in the former court has become ambiguous and delicate due to the abolition of the crown prince. When a wall is about to collapse, everyone gives it a push. Even if I no longer intervene, Pei Jing probably has no hope left. There are plenty of princes in the palace, and Pei Nangui is still in his prime. Father's favor has long since tilted toward Pei Nangui. The palace is full of those with cunning methods. For a time, the court and the harem were in turmoil. Like ink being stirred, the position of the crown prince remains vacant, and two princes have now emerged as contenders. I quietly sent someone to inquire. Although the fifth prince is of humble birth, he is intelligent and kind-hearted, and has now gathered considerable strength. The eighth prince had always been outstanding. If not for Pei Jing's status as the legitimate son, he would have had the best chance. What was even more shocking was that, in an attempt to secure a slim opportunity for Pei Jing, the empress actually sought out a sorcerer from the southern borderlands, intending to cast a curse on the emperor, caught in the act. The empress finally fell from her high position. She was stripped of her title as empress and confined to the cold palace. His family behind him was implicated, with some executed and others exiled. Seeing that Pei Jing was completely without hope, even the palace servants lost their good graces. He finally tasted hardship, and blamed all the faults on the peony. When I secretly went to see him, he was pressing Peony's head down, slapping her face again and again. You wretched woman, if it weren't for you, Su Liuyun would have been my crown princess. If it weren't for your shamelessness, seducing me, how could I have lost my position as the crown prince? Peony's screams were no longer delicate. Her swollen face and increasingly emaciated body resembled a withered branch. I curled the corner of my mouth from afar. Pei Jing, your nightmare has only just begun. Returning to the prince's mansion, Pei Nangui was already waiting in my room with a dark expression. Feeling a chill, I understood what was going on. Did you go find Pei Jing? I nestled into his arms as if boneless, my hands hooking around his neck. Are you jealous? His face flushed slightly, and he swallowed hard. Don't be silly, it's broad daylight. I cooed at him in a soft voice. My lord, I just want to see how miserable this arrogant prince looks after his fall from grace. Pei Nangui pinched the soft flesh at my waist, his expression softening a little. You are not allowed to go there ever again. After a long while, he finally lowered his gaze and spoke, his voice tinged with melancholy. Liu Yun, do you wish to become the empress, Anan? It's not that I must become the empress, it's just, I hesitate to speak, only because I fear a foolish ruler like Pei Jing. I have already witnessed a world that walks in darkness. They are in desperate need of a lamplighter, someone to illuminate the sky. If you wish, Liu Yun, I will contend for it. The emperor's health is deteriorating day by day, counting the days. The time of the emperor's passing is near. When the tragic news arrived from the palace, Pei Nangui was not present. The emperor passed away quietly before he could designate a crown prince. A storm is coming. I calmly instructed everyone in the household to pour the kerosene I had prepared in advance onto the courtyard walls. The young and strong, regardless of gender, were all given weapons. Tonight, the struggle for the throne begins. No one has the time to protect me, not Pei Nangui, not my father, nor my brother, even though I firmly believe in Pei Nangui and am certain of his success. The sound of hooves outside the mansion strikes fear into everyone's hearts with every step. Everyone is aware that someone has attacked the prince's mansion. Princess, we request that you come out to meet us. May I ask, whose troops are outside the gate? We are under the orders of the 8th prince to escort you into the palace. I tightened my grip on the sword in my hand. The Su family also comes from a military background. Taking a risk today might just yield an opportunity. Seeing that I remained motionless, they had no choice but to try courtesy before resorting to force. As the sound of the door being rammed echoed, the kerosene was completely ignited. Amid the flames, the face of Pei Nangui flashed through my mind, along with my father, my mother, my brother. I want to survive, I want to see them again. The clashing of weapons echoed all around, and the entire royal mansion was locked in a fierce battle. Hold on, the prince will surely come to rescue us. I shouted loudly to the crowd. Hearing the prince's name, everyone felt as if they had taken a calming pill, and their hands gripping the knives grew even steadier. Pei Nangui, please come back soon. I am waiting for you. The sky is about to light up. Just as the prince's mansion was about to give way, I heard Pei Nangui's voice. Liu Yun, I'm back. Tears welled up in my eyes. He had won. I personally went to open the mansion gate to welcome my husband. The moment the door opened, we held each other tightly. Liu Yun, from now on, you shall be my empress. As the sky gradually brightened, the scattered stars, each and every one, shone with light. When I saw Pei Jing again, I was already the empress. Pei Nangui said, Liu Yun, Laro Wu, and Laro Ba. I am willing to spare them all, but Pei Jing I do not wish to let him live. My man is actually a petty one, yet my heart is filled with sweetness. I adore his pettiness. When he was sent to his death, Pei Nangui took me to see him. He was disheveled and foul-smelling, lunging at the prison bars like a rabid dog when he saw us. Liu Yun, save me. I've already beaten that bitch Xiaoyao to death. Liu Yun, I had a dream. In the dream you were my queen. You should have been my queen, please. I regret it. You love me. Save me. Okay. I looked down at him from above. In the previous life, he slaughtered my entire family for the peony, and now he has personally killed her. Seeing that I remained unmoved, he turned his gaze to Pei Nangui. Imperial uncle, you have already ascended the throne and declared yourself emperor. Why can't you just spare my life? I beg you, Imperial uncle, even if I have to be your dog, just let me live. He knelt on the ground, knocking his head until it bled. And neither I nor Pei Nangui said a word. He went from pleading to bitter resentment, and finally to desperate screams. You despicable couple, I won't let you off even in hell. I curse you to die a miserable death. Before I could speak, Pei Nangui flew into a rage and ordered someone to stuff a dirty rag into his mouth. My empress, tell me, how do you want him to die? I recall the execution ground back then, where my Su family, all 179 of them, bled on the spot. Then let him pay it back before he goes. 179 cuts, not a single one less. No, wait, there's also Pei Nangui's share, 180 cuts. This is what he owes us. Winter has arrived, and the capital is blanketed in heavy snow. Pei Nangui is an excellent emperor, with not a single flaw in his handling of state affairs. Yet, the memorials impeaching him from the previous court still flow in like a ceaseless stream. He lay in my Phoenix Palace, eyes closed, listening as I read the contents of the memorials. Another one urging you to open the imperial harem and take consorts. This one too, and still another. Pei Nangui's brows were knitted with impatience as he spoke lazily. Worrying about things that don't concern you. I felt somewhat anxious and couldn't help but advise him, "Your Majesty, perhaps you should select a few concubines. With such a vast harem, having only me as your consort does feel rather lonely and dull." He pulled me into his arms. "With me by your side, how could you feel lonely, Liu Yun? I had a dream. In it, you were still the Empress, but not mine. I was terrified. That's why I asked you then, did you want to become the Empress? As for killing Pei Jing, it wasn't entirely out of jealousy, but more out of hatred. Because in the dream, he killed you. So, Liu Yun, don't push me toward others anymore. In this lifetime, I don't seek imperial power. It's all for you." My nose tingled with emotion, and my heart ached as I looked at his weary face. Yes, how he longed for freedom, how carefree and unrestrained he was. If it weren't for necessity, how could one be willing to spend a lifetime confined to a dragon throne? Over the past 6 months, the 5th prince, despite his humble origins, has been diligent and quite capable in his duties. I summoned him to the Phoenix Palace for a final assessment, now that your Majesty has just straightened out the court affairs. Everything is in need of revival, and the national treasury is empty. What do you think about increasing taxes? He knelt before the hall, his voice neither humble nor arrogant. "Your Highness, it must not be done. The harvest has been poor this year. If we impose heavy taxes and miscellaneous levies, the people will suffer unbearably. Since you say it must not be done, and the national treasury is short of silver, what do you suggest we do?" My voice grew increasingly stern. Forcing him to lower his head before me, he remained silent for a long while before finally speaking. "Your Majesty, if that is the case, I am willing to volunteer to lead the troops into battle, to reclaim the 3 border cities that were once ceded, which might resolve this urgent crisis." Perfect. His heart was with the people, and he would rather step into the fray himself, with grand ambitions and lofty aspirations, never forgetting the lost territories once held. Perhaps it is time for Pei Nangui and me to leave. 6 months later, Pei Nangui abdicated the throne on grounds of illness, passing the crown to the 5th prince. Each of us led the charge on a warhorse. "Liu Yun, once this battle is over, we will be free." "Yes, once this battle is over, we will be free." Later, Pei Nangui and I built a house at the foot of the southern mountain. Occasionally, wandering poets would say we lived a life of picking chrysanthemums by the eastern hedge. I gave birth to a daughter and named her Pei Qianling. Let others chase wealth and status. Why not playfully live 1,000 years? Pei Nanshan said she is as mischievous and lively as I am. He said he had watched me grow up slowly, and it annoyed him whenever I pretended to be quiet. He couldn't bear to see me wrapped in the cocoon of worldly rules, so he provoked me, teased me. He wanted to see me stomp and rage. He said that was vibrant. Now it's good. Our daughter is vibrant, radiant. Like the warm rising sun, I work with him from sunrise to sunset. Life is just as good without servants to wait on us, until we gaze into each other's eyes and pluck each other's white hairs, until white hairs cover our temples. In the years we cling to life, barely holding on. The 5th prince, oh no, the emperor, has sent someone. He wants to bring us, and Qianling, into the palace, to be well taken care of. We are old and do not wish to move. Qianling had no desire to enter the palace either. So one night, she left a letter and quietly embarked on her journey in the martial world. Pei Nangui and I thus leisurely counted the days, a love from a past life, a wish in this one, no regrets, full. The second story. I have been married to the crown prince for many years without bearing a child, yet the maid by my side is showing a baby bump. On the day of his coronation, he said coldly, "I can give you the position of empress, but when young must be the imperial consort." He forgot that the position of crown prince was given by me, reborn in this life. I turned around and led his archrival out of the cold palace. Her Highness says she's cold. Quickly add more charcoal. But we have no charcoal left in our palace. Listening to the palace servants' conversation, my heart felt desolate. My name is Cao Lingi. Since I entered the palace as a child, I was appointed as the crown princess. Back when the crown prince had not yet been established, it can be said that during the late emperor's reign, the crown prince could be deposed, but the crown princess could never be. I was known to the world as destined to be a phoenix, lying on the bed. I watched the snowflakes fluttering outside, the branches weighed down by the snow, and sensed that my time was running out. Cough, cough. Has His Majesty arrived yet? The senior palace maid, Chunxian, her eyes red, stepped forward to hold my hand and said with a sob, "Perhaps he will be here soon, Your Highness, you must hold on." I tightened my grip. "Tell the truth." Chunxian avoided eye contact, lowering her head and whispering, His Majesty went to Consort Wen first. I heard Consort Wen had a miscarriage scare, but His Majesty came here soon after. The imperial heir is of utmost importance. It is only right that His Majesty went to see Consort Wen first. Before the emperor arrived, Consort Wen came first, outside the door. The consort was followed by a crowd of palace attendants, dressed in embroidered court robes adorned with gold and jade ornaments, surpassing the rank of a consort. Such a grand display would make anyone who didn't know think she was the legitimate empress. When Yang could no longer suppress her ambition, Chunxian was shocked. "Why is it you who came?" Consort Wen cast a cold glance at Chunxian and said with displeasure, "The servants in the empress's palace truly lack discipline. I wouldn't mind helping you teach them some manners." I leaned back against the soft cushion, my voice weak but my authority undiminished. "Consort Wen, you have yet to pay your respects to me. Have you forgotten the etiquette you once learned in my presence?" It was rather ironic Consort Wen had climbed into the emperor's bed from my very quarters, once nothing more than a maid who served me. Consort Wen choked back her words and lowered herself into a respectful curtsy. "After the bow," she said, "did your Majesty see clearly? After all, this is the last bow I will ever perform for you. She's wishing for my death," I smiled and said. "I heard the noble consort suffered a miscarriage scare. Are you feeling better now?" Noble Consort Wen stroked her round belly and replied, "Thanks to His Majesty's concern, of course I'm fine. Besides, this is my second child. Your Majesty, who has never given birth, might not understand the saying the first time is unfamiliar, the second time is familiar. But what you really want to ask about is His Majesty, isn't it?" I covered my mouth with a silk handkerchief, coughing without answering, but my eyes dimmed slightly. Noble Consort Wen took a few light steps forward and laughed. "Originally, His Majesty said he would come to see the Empress, but the eldest princess was being mischievous, insisting on playing cat's cradle with her father. His Majesty, you know, dotes on children the most." I clenched the silk handkerchief, hiding the trace of crimson on it. "Childlessness is the sorrow of my life. But my body was fundamentally damaged when I went into the water to save someone, leaving me unable to bear children. What's especially laughable is that I injured myself saving my sister-in-law, the Empress Dowager's daughter, the Emperor's own sister. Now, as my life is fading like a dying lamp, my sister-in-law has not once come to visit." Consort Wen struck my sore spot, tilting her chin up with the air of a victor, once a lowly maid who groveled before me. She has now turned the tables and is flaunting her success. Why would the Empress Dowager favor such a demeanor? She even went so far as to suppress me while elevating Lady Wen, which is completely contrary to what she taught me. I sighed and dismissed everyone, then got straight to the point, asking the question I had never been able to understand in my life. "Lady Wen, I have always served the Empress Dowager as if she were my own mother. Why is it that no matter what I do, she never likes me?" As I spoke, my voice was intermittent, sustained only by this one breath. Noble Consort Wen looked down at me, her gaze turning pitying. "Cao Lingy, what does it matter if you were born with the fate of a phoenix?" My eyelids felt heavy, my consciousness weighed down as if by 1,000 pounds. Before my last breath left me, I heard the answer clearly. I woke up from my sleep and found that I had been reborn, judging by the decor and furnishings in the room. It was a time before I had married the second prince. I was still 16 years old. The Empress Dowager was also once the plum consort. So, when Yang is actually the child of the plum consort and the emperor, in her quest for power, the plum consort resorted to swapping a cat for a prince. She gave birth to a daughter but replaced her with someone else's son, passing him off as the second prince. What audacity indeed. No wonder Consort Mai's attitude changed so drastically after she became the Empress Dowager. It turns out I was no longer of any use as a stepping stone. Chunxian came in to draw the bed curtains. "Your Highness," Consort Mai has sent over some palace servants for you to choose a few clever ones from. I remember now, this was when Yang was sent over. I never expected Consort Mai to have dug such a big pit for me back then. Yang's identity is awkward, a real hot potato. By placing her by my side, my fae has tied me to them as if we're grasshoppers on the same string. The slightest misstep would make me an accomplice in confusing the royal bloodline, punishable by the extermination of 9 generations. The sun outside was blazing, and when Yang, dressed as a palace maid, knelt in the most conspicuous spot, sweat beading on her forehead. How come I never noticed before that Yang truly resembles my fae? I sat carelessly in the round-backed chair under the corridor, letting the palace maid paint my nails with balsam juice, and said with a lofty air, "This is a test of your composure. All of you, kneel properly." As soon as the words fell, everyone straightened their backs, including Yang. After tormenting Yang all afternoon, I still took her in as my palace maid, because I wanted Consort Mai to beg me to take Yang back when I first lost power. Consort Wen came to my palace to poach my people right in front of me. But I never expected that Mingxia would be the first to betray me. With her taking the lead, many others shamelessly stood up as well, leaving only little Li by my side. Consort Wen was as proud as a peacock in full display, and those palace servants were like the splendid feathers adorning her. That's right. The empress was bedridden with illness, while the consort enjoyed exclusive favor. The far-sighted palace servants knew they should curry favor with the consort that night. The sobbing of a maid woke me up. It was Mingxia. In my previous life, Mingxia had also hidden outside my room, weeping and waking me up. I asked her if there was any difficulty, and she knelt down to apologize, saying that her younger brother at home was seriously ill and had no money for treatment, and that she hadn't meant to wake me up. I lay in bed and did not get up as I did in my previous life, foolishly giving her a lot of silver. After a while, Mingxia cried even louder. This woke up Xiao Li, who scolded Mingxia in a low voice and sent her away. In the following days, Mingxia did not give up and took over the duty of the foot-washing maid. She lifted a haggard and pitiful face to ask me, "Master, is the water temperature suitable?" As she spoke, she was about to cry in front of me again. I pointed my hand towards Yang. "You come and wash them for me." Yang was clearly taken aback, biting her lip in shame and indignation. Chun Xian had a fiery temper and scolded loudly. "What, are you too good to wash your master's feet? If you can't do it, get out." I didn't. Yang reluctantly crouched down, slowly taking my foot from Mingxia's hands, tears pattering onto the back of my foot. From the day when Yang became a member of my palace, I had ordered Chun Xian to keep a close watch on her. Chun Xian came to report that Consort Mai had sent ointment to soothe Yang's cool skin. She was greatly puzzled. I, however, knew that Consort Mai was showing concern for her own biological daughter. In my previous life, with Consort Mai putting in a good word, I only assigned Yang light and elegant tasks like grinding ink, which of the maids didn't envy her. I sneered, "Can't even handle this now, second prince. Oh no, it should be the crown prince now." I was reborn shortly after the second prince had just become the crown prince. At the moment, I have already declined the crown prince's invitations 3 times. And today he came directly to my door. "Sister Lingy, what has been the matter with you lately? Didn't we agree before that I would teach you horseback riding? Yet you haven't come even when invited." As he spoke, he reached out to ruffle the top of my head. The crown prince showed no airs in front of me, and I once thought he was the most approachable big brother. Unfortunately, this gentleness was not exclusive to me. Since it wasn't meant for me alone, I'd rather not have it. I turned my head away and coldly reminded him, "There should be boundaries between men and women. Your Highness, please mind your manners." His movements noticeably paused as he awkwardly lowered his hand, yet he maintained a smile. "What's the matter? Who made you angry?" I remained silent. He added, "If I have inadvertently offended you, I offer my sincerest apologies. However, Her Majesty mentioned that you haven't visited in quite some time and haven't responded to her dinner invitations. After all, she is an elder. You mustn't act on a whim." "My apologies, Your Highness, but this is just how I am." As soon as the words left my mouth, Chun Xian poked me in the small of my back. The Crown Prince's expression turned stern as he stared at me for a long moment, then sighed helplessly and said with affection, "Very well, it seems someone isn't interested in the newly arrived foals at the Imperial stables either." I hummed softly, not responding. The Crown Prince made an excuse for himself. "Forget it, the weather has been unpredictable lately, warm then cold, it's better not to leave the palace, lest you catch a chill." I recalled my previous life, confined to a sickbed, pleading in vain to see him one last time before death. While he was enjoying family happiness with the consort, I suppose he's finally learned what disappointment feels like. After angering the Crown Prince, Chunxian bombarded me with criticism, saying that such behavior was dangerous and detrimental to future harmony between the Emperor and Empress. I turned around and pulled her straight to Changning Palace, using my actions to show her that I truly had no intention of continuing with the Crown Prince. I even intended to break off the engagement. Changning Palace was actually the Cold Palace, inhabited only by the third prince. A discarded prince in the Cold Palace is still better than a switched heir. At least he is of royal blood and the only prince of suitable age besides the Crown Prince. The Changning Palace is located in the most remote corner of the Imperial Palace, with overgrown and desolate gardens. Coincidentally, the third prince was being bullied by the seventh prince. The seventh prince ordered the third prince to crawl under his crotch. Logically, the seventh prince is only 9 years old, while the third prince is already 16 and should not be afraid. Unfortunately, the third prince's maternal family had fallen from grace, and without the emperor's favor, he naturally had no one to rely on. I drove the seventh prince away. No matter how arrogant the seventh prince was, he had to address me respectfully as Sister Cow in my presence. After the third prince expressed his thanks, I grabbed hold of his sleeve. He was tall, with strikingly handsome features. I asked, "Do you want to be emperor?" He immediately knelt and kowtowed, his voice trembling. "I have not offended Sister Cow. I beg you, Sister Cow, do not harm me." That reaction was far more intense than when he faced the seventh prince earlier. I saw how spineless he was and felt disappointed in my heart. Not long after, I heard that the seventh prince had fallen into the water and fallen ill. It seems evildoers are punished by heaven. Still, the third prince is, after all, the emperor's child, so I arranged for many things and additional servants to be provided for him. His Majesty is diligent in governance but neglects the harem, which is widely recognized as the mark of a good emperor. On 8 out of 10 occasions when I visited, he was reviewing memorials. Just as I stepped through the doorway and before I could perform the ceremonial greeting, the figure in the bright yellow robes on the throne waved to me. "Lingy, come here, there's a letter from your father and brother." My eyes lit up, and I lifted the hem of my skirt to hurry over, which made the emperor laugh heartily. After reading, I pouted my lips. "This is clearly a memorial reporting border affairs. Yet your Majesty is deliberately teasing me." Even so, my fingers unconsciously traced the dried ink marks, as if I could imagine the red tassels and silver armor. "The generals and their troops," the emperor sighed. "The borderlands are windy and bitterly cold. Your father and brothers are fine men defending our homeland. You are their treasured pearl, yet I have trapped you here. Do you resent me? My father and brothers have long been stationed at the frontier, ensuring our nation remains free from war. The emperor kept me in the palace to raise me personally, partly to keep my family in check, and partly out of genuine affection for me. After all, there is a debt owed. I understand His Majesty's guilt. As an emperor, the state is his priority, yet he is also a benevolent ruler, unable to bear the thought of causing harm. My presence can put the emperor at ease regarding his ministers, and that is the best arrangement possible." Lingy only feels fortunate and grateful. A strong general meeting a virtuous ruler is like a swift horse meeting its discerning master. My father and brother dedicated their hearts to protecting the land, and it was His Majesty who fulfilled their wishes. Upon hearing this, His Majesty patted my head and praised. "Good child." I pouted and muttered, "Wait until you hear what I have to say next, and you'll wish you could take back those words, good child." His Majesty let out a surprised "oh" and became intrigued. "Am I really that stingy?" I walked behind him and began massaging his shoulders, cautiously saying, "Your Majesty, may I not marry the Crown Prince?" His Majesty said with a stern face. "It's just childishness. The Crown Prince has done nothing wrong. How can he be deposed so easily?" "No, I was talking about breaking off the engagement. Why did he think I meant deposing the Crown Prince? This matter requires careful consideration, so I didn't bring it up again. His Majesty treats me with great kindness, and I also wish for him to live a longer life." I called the imperial physician to take the Emperor's pulse. The Emperor said he was in good health, and both the physician and I thought so too. I truly couldn't understand why, after the winter of my previous life, the Emperor's health had taken such a sharp turn for the worse. Although I didn't succeed in calling off the engagement, I pleaded with the Emperor to postpone the matter of recalling Lin Youfu to court. Lin Youfu is the father of Consort Mai. He had returned home for 3 years to observe the mourning period for his parents' passing. It has always been the case that, regardless of one's previous high position, many fall from grace after the mourning period. Consort Mai feared this, which is why she asked me to speak highly of her father. At my persuasion, His Majesty took the initiative to recall Lin Youfu and promoted him to the position of Prime Minister. Fortunately, Lin Youfu was being overly sentimental and declined once, now that he has failed to wait for His Majesty's second decree. There is no need for him to return to court. Consort Mai got wind of the news and once again sent someone to invite me to a banquet. In my previous life, ever since the Crown Prince ascended the throne, Consort Mai had been constantly reminding me to be magnanimous, to reflect on myself, to be frugal, and to set an example for the 6 palaces. It wasn't like being an empress at all, it was more like being an ascetic monk. It took me a long time to realize that it was simply because the Empress Dowager disliked me, using high-sounding reasons to torment me. Even if I see through it, what can I do? His Majesty rules the world with benevolence and filial piety, and would never defy the Empress Dowager for my sake. As soon as I entered, Consort Mai's gaze grew eager. Seeing Wen Yang by my side, her smile became even more sincere. Taking my hand, her first question was, "Is the maid I trained and sent to you working out well?" Listen, she wouldn't even say maid, but rather servant girl. These trivial details were overlooked by me in my past life. I caught a glimpse of Wen Yang's aggrieved and stifled expression, as if she had no chance to speak her mind, and replied with a smile, "Your Highness has gone to great trouble. Wen Yang is very capable, and I am quite fond of her." Consort Mai had no suspicions. Lingy, do you know when the Crown Prince's maternal grandfather will return to the capital? This child has been close to his grandfather since he was young. If he gets to see him, he would be overjoyed. I gracefully wiped the crumbs from the corner of my mouth and said slowly, "Your Highness, I am ashamed to face you." His Majesty said that Lord Lin has refused. Refused? Consort Mai shouted, losing her composure for once. I felt my ears jump in surprise. My face turned pale then flushed. Looking as if she had suffered a grievance but couldn't speak of it, she couldn't very well admit that Lin Youfu was putting on airs in front of His Majesty, so she could only tell me to wait until she persuaded him. I took a sip of tea, feeling quite pleased. Who knows what will happen in the future? I responded with feigned agreement. It was always Consort Mai who set traps for me. I glanced at Wen Yang and said to Consort Mai, "Why haven't I seen little Ayun lately? Has she grown taller again?" When it came to her youngest daughter, Consort Mai had nothing but praise, her words overflowing with adoration, occasionally mentioning a bit of mischief. Yet even that was filled with affection. While playing along, I observed Wen Yang's expression and saw that she was indeed growing increasingly resentful. Indeed, both are daughters of the Consort Mai, both of royal bloodline, yet one is treated as a slave, the other as a treasure. Human nature is such that people do not worry about scarcity, but about inequality. If I remember correctly, at this banquet, my sister-in-law will fall into the water. In my previous life, after I rescued the little princess and returned to the palace, Wen Yang did not hesitate to hypocritically pledge her loyalty. Had I known this would happen, Your Highness should have taken me along. I am skilled in swimming, and with me by your side, Your Highness would not have been harmed. Since you're so eager to come, then come along. It was about time. So I took Consort Mai to the cold pond. The cold pond was planted with plum blossoms. At this time of year, all the plum blossoms in the world had withered. Yet only those at Consort Mai's place were newly blooming. This was all the Crown Prince's filial devotion. Help! In the distance, there was a cry for help that sounded like the little princess. By the time we rushed to the shore, the little princess was bobbing up and down in the middle of the water. I said, "Wen Yang comes from a fishing village and is an excellent swimmer. Why aren't you saving her?" Yes, hurry and save Yuna." Consort Mai reacted a beat late to my words, staring blankly at Wen Yang, who, both are equally dear. This difficult choice lay before her. Consort Mai chose to avert her gaze, shouting anxiously, "Quick, save the little princess, hurry." Wen Yang, pushed by me, had no choice but to brace himself and dive into the water to rescue her. After rescuing the person, Consort Mai saw that the little princess was unharmed and then summoned the imperial physician to examine Wen Yang's health. After taking the pulse, the imperial physician concluded, "Cold has invaded the body, and I'm afraid it will be difficult to have children in the future, exactly the same as my previous life." Consort Mai's eyes instantly reddened as she murmured, "How could this be?" Wen Yang couldn't accept this outcome, shaking off Consort Mai's hand and complaining, "Now, are you satisfied, Your Highness?" I scolded Wen Yang, "You saved the princess and did Her Highness a great service. As a servant, this is your fortune. How dare you show such an attitude toward Her Highness?" She bit her lip and remained silent. Consort Mai hurriedly soothed me. "Forget it, I'm fine. Don't scold her anymore," I replied to Consort Mai. "It is my fault for not disciplining her strictly. Your Highness often teaches me about women's virtues, and I have kept it in mind. After returning, I will reward and punish accordingly, so as not to trouble Your Highness." Consort Mai said urgently, No, I'm really not angry. Your Highness's magnanimity in not being angry is admirable. It's getting late, so I will take her back to reflect on her mistakes." Consort Mai held her forehead in frustration. "Lingy, I've been thinking, perhaps it would be better to return Wen Yang to me. She injured herself saving the princess, and I could have the imperial physicians help her recuperate. What do you think?" I pretended to be troubled and scolded Wen Yang. "Since Her Highness intends to teach you, you must serve the little princess and Consort Mai well." "Understood." Wen Yang was so angry that her nostrils flared slightly, and she said through gritted teeth, "Thank you for your guidance, princess." After sending away this hot potato, Wen Yang, even if the scheme of swapping the royal heir is exposed, it can no longer implicate me. Consort Mai wants to drag me into this. Not a chance. As for how this mother and daughter will mend their relationship, it has nothing to do with me. I saw the Crown Prince approaching from a distance. I quickly hid behind the rockery, only to accidentally overhear a conversation. The Crown Prince's subordinate said, "What's wrong with Miss Cow lately? She used to visit the Eastern Palace every other day. Could she really have changed her heart?" The Crown Prince said irritably, "That's just her nature. Just ignore her for a few days and she'll be fine. Indeed, Miss Cow's infatuation with you is known to all under heaven. Yes, the Crown Prince takes advantage of my affection for him. Every time I cause a scene, he gives me the cold shoulder for a few days. Wasn't it the same before I died in my previous life?" Coming out from the rockery, I bumped into someone, the third prince, so I wasn't the only one eavesdropping. He and I nodded in acknowledgement and went our separate ways. Late at night, I wandered casually to the edge of the pond and heard someone muttering. Unexpectedly, I saw a figure with their back turned, burning paper money. Burning paper money in the palace is a major taboo. I shouted loudly, "Who's there?" Never expecting it to be the third prince, he panicked and called out Sister Cow. Bowing his head as if he had done something wrong, "Are you paying respects to your mother?" After being found out, he grabbed my sleeve and pleaded pitifully, "Sister Cow, I know I was wrong. Please don't tell father." Okay, the third prince and I now shared a secret. This secret made him frequent my palace, under the guise of repaying me. From then on, I had a little follower trailing behind me, calling me Sister Cow at every turn. I even began to suspect at times that he was trying to seduce me. For instance, right now, as he fell into the water, his already handsome features were flushed and misty, like a bewitching spirit emerging from the depths. I ordered the palace attendants to pull him up, but he brushed off their hands with a dark expression and reached directly for me. I reluctantly extended my hand and urged him, Hurry up, a cold, wet touch gripped my palm, and I caught a glimpse of a triumphant smile. Those who approach me do so for nothing but that position. Privately, I asked him again, do you want to be emperor? The first time I asked him this question, he immediately knelt and begged for mercy. That situation could also be interpreted in another way. He was being cautious in the palace and did not trust me. From overhearing the crown prince's conversation, to deliberately handing me evidence, and his recent observations of me, I think he should believe I'm serious now. Sure enough. His entire demeanor shifted, he withdrew his smile, and a touch of solemnity entered his eyes. What's the price? Set me free. He looked at me, his eyelids slowly closing and opening. All right, I agree. After forming the alliance, I began to take action. First, I made sweeping changes to the palace staff around me, carrying out a complete overhaul. Working in my palace was a lucrative position, and these servants had all striven with all their might to get in. But I knew that after my grand wedding with the crown prince, following consort Mai's teachings to practice frugality in every aspect, many of them had developed disloyal thoughts. I rewarded all the newly appointed palace servants with gold, with only one requirement, loyalty. The entire palace was filled with envy, and those who had been replaced regretted it deeply, yet they still had no idea where they went wrong. Mingxia requested an audience several times, but I avoided her each time. To those who are disloyal, I will never give a second chance. The ones I trust the most are still Chunxian and Xiaoshuanzi. For this reason, I gave them both valuable gifts. As a way to repay their unwavering loyalty in our past life, it can be said that the entire palace was filled with joy at this time. The person I had sent to spy on Wen Yang reported that the crown prince had been getting along very well with Wen Yang recently, and consort Mai seemed quite pleased to see it. Of course, she was pleased to see it. Wen Yang was in poor health and had been at odds with consort Mai, only feeling better when she saw the crown prince. I've been competing with Wen Yang in secret for so long that I can almost guess what she's thinking. First, the crown prince has taken her position as the imperial heir, so she naturally believes that only by uniting with him can everything be set right. She should be the empress. Second, she and consort Mai see me as a stepping stone. Without me, there would be no crown prince. She dares not openly snatch him away, which must be frustrating for her. So secretly exchanging flirtatious glances with the crown prince probably gives her a sense of satisfaction. As for the crown prince, since in the previous life he and Wen Yang had child after child, he must be quite taken with her ways. Chunxian reminded me, Master, it's best not to quarrel with the crown prince, or else those seductive women might seize the opportunity. I remember a line Wen Yang once teased me with, what's yours, no one can take away. What's not yours, even if I don't take it, someone else will. A relationship that needs to be fought for to be kept is not one I want. The reason the third prince was initially disliked was because his mother had an affair, and he was suspected of being an illegitimate child. Years later, the third prince and his majesty look exactly alike, as if carved from the same mold. Who would dare say they aren't father and son? With me putting in a good word for him before his majesty, the emperor finally remembered he had another son. Upon seeing the third prince, the emperor understood everything. He tested him on some classical texts, and the father and son talked for an entire afternoon in the hall of diligent governance. Hearing that the third prince answered all the questions excellently, the emperor was overjoyed. Soon after, the emperor decided to hold a belated birthday banquet for the third prince, a small, intimate gathering with only family members in attendance. Although the banquet was small, it was a sign that the third prince had regained favor. I smiled and congratulated him. Third prince, if you rise to wealth and honor, do not forget me. This is all thanks to Sister Cow's good fortune, he said. Then leaned in and whispered, I've prepared a congratulatory gift for you. Keep an eye out for it later. Just as I was about to ask what the gift was, the crown prince, whom I hadn't seen in a long time, appeared behind me and called out to me as he always had, Sister Lingy. I turned and bowed. After congratulating the third prince, he said coldly to me, you are the future crown princess of this palace. Many eyes are watching in private, mind your boundaries with others. He was clearly displeased that I had whispered to the third prince, but his words were not just a warning to me, they were also a warning to the third prince. The Crown Prince nodded to the third prince, then dragged
me. However, I underestimated the Crown Prince's nature, both sentimental and deeply affectionate. I never expected that, to make me marry him wholeheartedly, he would go to any lengths. I drank the sweet soup he sent and woke up in the Crown Prince's palace. The guards outside the door had fallen to the ground, and the third prince broke in, carrying me back to my own chamber. The third prince forged an imperial decree, first, to save me, second, to set a trap for the Crown Prince. He has everything arranged. The Crown Prince will overhear the truth about his origins at the gate of the Hall of Diligent Governance tonight. And he will mistakenly believe that His Majesty is investigating, when Yang has also been replaced by him, and everything is proceeding according to plan. He reassured me that it will all be over soon. I suddenly asked him, "Do you still remember what your mother looked like?" He gave a bitter smile. "She died right after I was born. How could I remember?" He paused, then added, "Even if I don't remember, I know she was the one who loved me most in this world." My eyes suddenly grew moist. Even though I couldn't see my parents and elder brother, I could imagine that on every full moon night, they would stand in the desolate desert, praying for peace across the land and wishing me safety and happiness from afar. I said, "You must remember your promise." He reluctantly drew out his tone. "Yes, I will grant Sister Cow her freedom. The greatest fear when playing chess against someone is losing your own composure. Losing composure leads to an overly aggressive mindset." The third prince brought me the news that Wen Yang had accidentally fallen into a well and drowned. This Wen Yang was not the real Wen Yang. The one who died was a double he had found. The double only needed to resemble him slightly, and after being soaked in water, his features were beyond recognition. Even the Crown Prince wouldn't be able to tell. I heard the real Wen Yang witnessed the entire incident and was so terrified he couldn't even eat. Lately, the atmosphere in the palace has been tense and uneasy, with the Crown Prince no longer coming to see her. She closed her eyes and pondered, "If I were the Crown Prince, what would I do upon learning I wasn't of royal blood?" The answer speaks for itself. It's time to have it out with His Majesty. This matter cannot be said by me, nor by the third prince. It can only be Wen Yang. Now, Wen Yang has only two paths before her. Either wait for the Crown Prince to kill her to eliminate any future trouble, or take a gamble and acknowledge her father-daughter relationship with the Emperor. With all the groundwork laid before, she must have long grown tired of being a servant. Moreover, without Consort Mai's schemes, she will surely make plans for herself. Since the third prince was released from the cold palace, his maternal grandfather's family has also been reinstated to important positions. Wen Yang's case was handed over to the former court, and the Emperor secretly summoned Wen Yang. As for the Crown Prince, despite my numerous refusals to cooperate, he still insisted on holding the wedding. Finally, the day arrived. I was tied up in the Eastern Palace, and the Crown Prince pinched my chin, saying, "No matter what, you are my Empress." Our marriage was decreed by the late Emperor. The late Emperor. It seems he has made up his mind to ascend the throne today. What a ridiculous arranged marriage. The Emperor has already informed me that he was well aware of the Crown Prince's actions and had made preparations, instructing me to cooperate with the Crown Prince and not let him harm me. I smiled, neither scolding him nor correcting him. The wedding procession shed their red robes, each one transforming into agile warriors. I watched as they protected the Crown Prince, cutting a path all the way to the Hall of Diligent Governance. Unstoppable, Your Majesty, and the eunuch stood at the door. Wen Yang hiding behind the eunuch, the Crown Prince caught sight of Wen Yang at once. "You're not dead." The woman who had once boasted to me in our past life about the Crown Prince's undying favor was now like a startled bird, waving her hands frantically. "Don't kill me, don't kill me." At that moment, the third prince arrived with his men, shouting loudly, "Your son has brought the capital guards to protect Your Majesty. Though we are late, I beg Your Majesty's forgiveness." The Emperor sighed deeply. "The third prince has come to rescue me." "But Crown Prince, what brings you here? Is it for that position?" The Emperor pointed his finger, directing it toward the dragon throne. "The wrath of the Son of Heaven leaves millions dead in its wake." With my hands tied, I knelt on the ground, trembling like a quail. The Crown Prince is incapable of achieving anything. His status as the imperial heir was granted by Consort Mai. His favor was bestowed by the Emperor, and even his position as Crown Prince, I gave it to him. Weapons were all thrown to the ground, and the Crown Prince surrendered without resistance. Consort Mai hurried over, dressed in full regalia, clearly kept in the dark about the situation. Indeed, just a few days ago, upon learning of Wen Yang's death, Consort Mai was said to have been so grief-stricken that she took to her bed for a long time. Today was supposed to be a day of great joy, She had finally managed to lift her spirits, but then she faintly heard the sounds of fighting and killing from the palace, only to realize that the Crown Prince had staged a coup. The third prince escorted a court physician forward and reported, "This man was also bribed by the Crown Prince, intending to poison you." Indeed, the emperor had not fallen ill in 2 lifetimes. How could his health have suddenly deteriorated so severely in the previous life? It was likely also the Crown Prince's doing. I just don't know if Consort Mai was involved in it in her previous life. The emperor took the teacup and threw it at the Crown Prince's feet, angrily shouting, "He is not the Crown Prince, not my son." Upon hearing this, Consort Mai's eyes rolled back, and she fainted dead away on the spot. When the dust settled, the Crown Prince and Consort Mai were implicated along with their 9 clans, and they were to be executed in a few days. The Crown Prince's birth mother was found by His Majesty, and it turned out to be Consort Mai's personal maid, whose entire family had been executed years ago to silence her. The royal way of survival has been my way of life since childhood. I've kept myself clean through a series of events without meddling unnecessarily. The third prince brought me cherry cheese. Once it was me who brought him food, now it's him, he said. The deposed Crown Prince wants to see me. I'm tired of this, I said impatiently. You said the same thing last time. No meeting. No meeting. He said he would wait for you, no matter how long it takes. When I saw the deposed Crown Prince again, I felt a sense of disbelief. The memory of my radiant, dignified older brother had grown hazy, replaced by the disheveled, unkempt prisoner before me. "What do you want from me?" I asked, as cold and distant as ever. The deposed Crown Prince heard my voice, looked up, and a glimmer of light shone in his eyes. The chains clinked as he gripped the prison bars, his gaze dimming again. "You've come." He closed his eyes for a moment and said, "I never knew when your heart turned cold toward me. Lingy, I thought I had treated you well, except for the matter with Wen Yang." "Why?" My eyes stung as a tear rolled down my cheek. I spoke slowly. "When did my heart die? I can't quite remember. Perhaps it was when I swallowed down a table full of meals I'd prepared for you all by myself, or when your child threw away the sachet I embroidered for you, and you spoke with such indifference, or when you gave me that accusing look after falsely accusing me of pushing Consort Wen, or maybe it was the way you defended the Empress Dowager without even asking for the truth." The deposed Crown Prince looked puzzled. What child? What Consort Wen? What Empress Dowager? None of these things ever happened. Lingy, what are you talking about? I wiped away my tears and smiled. The collapse between us began when you made Wen Yang your consort and had children with her, while I became infertile saving your sister. It ended when, on my deathbed, I begged to see my parents and elder brother one last time, but you were too busy pleasing your parents to come until I died. This was our past life, Your Majesty. The deposed Crown Prince remained dazed for a long time, muttering the words past life. Outside the prison, the sunlight was dazzling, and a figure stood guarding the entrance. Behind me, the deposed Crown Prince suddenly asked, "Lingy, if I had never been a royal heir, would you have married me? Would we have been happy, right?" I halted in my steps. "But my destiny as a phoenix is unchangeable. You've forgotten. If he weren't a royal heir, there would have been no possibility for us." As I was about to disappear into the corridor, his voice faded away. "I'm sorry." I did not answer him again and walked out the door. The third prince's eyes sparkled when he saw me, a light that felt strangely familiar. It was as if I had seen it before in the eyes of the deposed Crown Prince. The next day, the deposed Crown Prince took his own life. I covered my eyes and wept for an entire day. Back then, I miscalculated one thing, that is, His Majesty would not pass away as he did in the previous life. In other words, getting the third prince to fulfill his promise is now a distant hope. As a result, I took my frustration out on him and often treated him coldly. Chunqian said, "Only you dare to bully the third prince. And it's only because he lets you. If you knew how terrified the seventh prince is of him, you'd know I'm telling the truth." After dragging on until this age, the emperor scolded me, "You're already 18. If you don't get married soon, your father and brother will blame me for raising you poorly." After scolding me, he turned to the third prince. "You're not young either. It's time to marry and pursue someone. Don't just follow around all day calling out sister, sister." The emperor imitated the third prince's way of speaking, making me both angry and amused. At the age of 20, I married the third prince. That night, he still called me Sister Cow, but he called me that all night long. In the second year of our marriage, I gave birth to a son, having lived 2 lives. Heaven knows how excited I am at this moment. On the 8th year of the grand wedding, His Majesty passed away. I was genuinely heartbroken. The emperor was a good ruler and a good father. Shortly after, Wen Yang also died. The haughty consort when gradually faded from my memory, leaving only a pitiful soul whose life was ruined by consort Mai. The first thing the new emperor did after ascending the throne was to have him write me a letter of separation. He kept his word, at least. I boarded a carriage and headed for the border. After a month of bumpy travel, when I arrived at the border, I could faintly see the white funeral banners of the national mourning still hanging. I couldn't help but think of the new emperor, left behind in the palace to handle the affairs of state. I hugged my parents and brother, crying bitterly. Just as the new emperor once said, "We are connected by blood. Even if we cannot see each other, we know the other loves us." Why am I thinking of him again? In the first 2 months, my parents and brother treated me exceptionally well. By the 4th month, my brother had already started snatching the chicken drumsticks from my bowl. In the 5th month, the 15th day was the Mid-Autumn Festival. In the past, the ones I missed during this time were my parents and elder brother. This time, it was the new emperor. I wonder how he spent it alone in the lonely depths of the palace, but with the child to keep him company. I imagine he was happy. Just thought of him, and unexpectedly met him at the border. On the street, he held a child in each hand, looking unusually aggrieved. "Sister Cow, are you really abandoning us?" I lifted my skirt and dashed over, hooking my arms around his neck, closed my eyes, and kissed him. The end.